Everyone deserves a great teacher. Great teachers teach us about the past, they help us think about the future, but the best teachers teach us how to make the world a better place. And today I'm going to introduce you to my favorite teacher, and it's a teacher that all of you have experienced as well. It's this guy, Mr. Toilet. And Mr. Toilet has a lot of lessons to teach. Some of them are very philosophical, and some of them are very practical. And so today I'm going to share some of those lessons learned, and I'm going to start out with the tale of two girls. The first girl here is my daughter, recently born, 2 months old. And the main lesson that I learned from her every single day are the really big ones, like the power of love and hope and a sense of wonder. And it gives me and my wife an opportunity to nurture her best human potential. But she also offers another very practical lesson that Mr. Toilet tells us about that is the ultimate equalizer. It doesn't matter what your religion is, it doesn't matter what your faith is, it doesn't matter if you're rich, if you're poor, what color you are. What goes in will come out. And my daughter, she's really good at reminding us of this story every few hours. Another thing that Mr. Toilet tells us about is ABC. Always be clean. Now, this is something I find really amazing. My daughter is a great communicator. If she's hungry, she's going to let you know it. But if her diaper is dirty, she also lets you know it. Now, she has no microbiology knowledge. She doesn't know that that thing is bad for her, but she does. And so it's truly one of the very first things we're aware of, that cleanliness and sanitation, good sanitation, matters. So potty training, that's the next big part. For parents, it's an epic win when the child knows how to go to the bathroom. You are liberated from having to change those diapers every hour. But for the child, it is equally epic, because that child, that boy or the girl, now has a superpower. I just flush that thing or press a button and away it goes. This is an incredible power. And so kids love that. But the main lesson Mr. Toilet tells us here through potty training is that you have to put the right stuff in the right place. And that story actually carries with you all throughout life. You want to make sure that the right stuff goes in the right place. And so for that very first lesson, I am very thankful. But you should also be thankful, because you have one of these. But 2.5 billion people do not have access to a safe, reliable toilet. Zero. Not a hole, not a hall, nothing. Zero. Zilch. This is criminal. And this leads me to the tale of the second girl. About 20 years ago, I had a chance to go to a slum and work on a charity project for the day. It was on the side of a mountain, and when I was coming down the mountain, I noticed that there was a little girl in a ditch. And so I walked over to her, and as I approached the ditch, I realized this was no ordinary ditch. This was a deep, deep hole carved in the earth down the hill of the side. And what it was filled with was shit. This little girl was up to her waist in human waste. And when I pulled that girl from this terrible situation, what I soon discovered was that this girl had been abandoned. She had been left to drown in this terrible situation. And so there and then I vowed that one day I would do something about this, because there are girls all around the world that face this. Every 17 seconds, a child dies because they have some type of disease that they catch from a lack of sanitation. And so the main thing I learned here is that if you put the right thing in the wrong place, the consequence can be deadly. So what does the world look like without toilets? Super hard to imagine here for people who are here and who are listening. And so this is what it looks like. When you have no toilets, you have to go to the places around you, and pretty soon you're filling your lakes, your rivers, your streets, your house. It's horrible. It's one big open sewer pit. And when you have all these people living in a place with no toilet, basically you have created a death zone, the opposite part of the life that we saw earlier with my daughter. And so for me, I find this an absolutely crazy thing. It hit me in the head. It was like a lightning bolt. And so I promised that one day I would take this on. This is a big deal. You need to know this. So every one of you have a piece of paper that you received today. Can you please take that out? It will either say sit or stand. So if you have the one that says stand, please do so now. Okay. Now imagine if I tell you, all those who are standing, you are not allowed to use the bathroom today. Not in this building, not in this city. What's going to happen? That good old law of what goes in must come out is going to come visit you. And eventually, you're going to want to do something about that. And what you're going to have to do? You're going to have to do it in public. And that is how the rest of the world lives. 40% of you are standing right now. It's about that many people who do not have the luxury of all those who are sitting down of having a toilet. So now you can sit down. But this is huge. So what's the big deal? Pee and poo. Why am I obsessed with this issue? Is it intrinsically bad? So over here, you got the guy, the gal, and we have the little alien. He's like the ambassador for what's in your belly. Now, if pee is transformed into water, you just need a little technology to do that. And if you take poo, you can actually also transform that into beneficial things. So it's not actually a bad guy. But if you put the wrong thing in the wrong place, very quickly it becomes like a horror movie. The worst possible imaginable outcome you can think of. So what do we want to do? We want to liberate the kids who are stuck in beds, because 50% of the children in sub-Saharan Africa are in the hospital because they have some kind of disease that has been caught by a lack of access to sanitation. So we just have to throw them a line. Let's get toilets to them. We can empty those beds. And for me, the best hospital is an empty hospital, because these kids are then healthy, they can grow, they can become productive members of society. Maybe one day they'll do a TED Talk, who knows? But they're not going to be sitting there in that bed facing a horrible consequence of something that should not be trapping them. And the other big thing is, if you're a girl, you have a double whammy. Because when you go from a girl to being a young lady, you have that period. What they have shown is that girls drop out of school if there's no toilet for them. It's not safe. And so for me, this is completely unacceptable. So what do we want? We want sanitation for everyone. Boys, girls, old and young, everyone should have this. And so this is a supersized challenge, 2.5 billion people. Either you're thinking I am crazy or I have some magic solution, but I really believe that you can take these on. And so we're going to go back to the main guy who has all the lessons, Mr. Toilet, my favorite guru. And so he has 7 basic lessons that teach us how to take on any supersized challenge. It could be HIV, it could be malaria, it can be anything that's important to you, but that affects billions of people. And so my co-founder and myself, who are committed to taking on these problems that affect at least 1 billion people, decided to apply these lessons to toilets and are creating a network of 10 million toilets. And so what's the first lesson? You got to talk about it. So when I normally talk about toilets, and you're a very polite audience here, so you didn't do it, but the usual reaction I get is, ooh, that is disgusting, horrible, that's crazy. And you know what? It is horrible. But you have to have the courage to look this issue in the face. And any issue that's that big, you cannot ignore it. And there are lots of problems like that. And the main thing is that we get trapped by taboo. We don't want to talk about those things. But if you don't talk about something, you can't solve it. That's the very heart of TED. We want to talk about everything. And so, when you're a child, you're taught, don't use bad words, don't talk about things that are uncomfortable, don't have a potty mouth. Well, we think differently. We think that everyone should have a potty mouth, and we're not alone. This guy, Matt Damon, Mr. Action Hero, incredible filmmaker, he loves talking about water. He's got a great charity about water, but he's finally come around to talking about toilets. And a few days ago, Matt said, I'm going on strike, and I am not going to use the bathroom until everyone has one. Good luck, Matt. But the reality is, he's using humor to talk about the unspeakable, and that's very powerful. And so, talk to your children early. Talk to anyone and everyone about the issue that matters to you, because the earlier we speak to them, the sooner they become aware of it. And if they become aware of it, they can begin to take the skills on that they need to solve it. And if you've been really good at what you're doing and communicating, you eventually instill the willingness to take it on. And you need a lot of will to take on these big issues. And that's why I come to the number 2 point from Mr. Toilet, which is you must have courage. It's not going to be easy. No problem is an instant fix of this magnitude. But I have to say, it's worth it. So this guy is my favorite hero. He's perhaps one of the greatest heroes in history when it comes to health. It's a guy named Dr. Snow, and at the turn of the century in London, they were facing a pandemic of cholera. People were dying by the droves of this disease. But he didn't have any cool tools. He didn't have electron microscopes. He didn't have any kind of big laboratories. What he had was curiosity, passion, and observation. But most importantly, courage. Because back in the day, you had to go to a pump in the community square to get your water. And eventually, when he talked to everybody about this issue, he realized, hey, people are throwing their pee and poo in the exact same area in which they're pumping their water. Must be a problem. So he went out there one day and he had that broken. He broke the pump so no one would use it. Talk about outrage. Crazy. Doctors didn't like him. Scientists didn't like him. The women and the men who were getting their water didn't like him. But in a very short period of time, there was no more cholera. He is the godfather of sanitation. And there are others today who are modern superheroes. There's a guy named Jack Sim who created the World Toilet Organization. There's World Toilet Day. But hey, it's not just geeky guys at this. We also have the super beautiful, intelligent Jessica Alba, who's created a company called The Honest Company, which does what? It deals with poo. It's the diapers, wipes, and everything that you need to take care of this issue. And it's super eco, and it's super sustainable, and she's doing everything she can to talk about the issue. The other thing you have to be is inventive. Any problem that's this big, you have to be really smart about it. So, one idea truly can affect 2.5 billion people. And so, sometimes ideas are crazy. A Toto on a motorbike? I don't know, that's pretty awesome. Sometimes it's beautiful, and sometimes it's high techno. You can press a button in a public square, abracadabra, there's a toilet. But my colleague and I, we decided that we would do a hackathon, a design competition to bring out the best possible ideas. And so we teamed up with big organizations and small organizations, and we also teamed up with this guy. Now, this is actually a toilet, and I'm sure Bill is asking himself, well, where do I go? So the reality is that you have to be able to think outside the box about how you're going to reinvent things. And so, for example, in India, there are 3 times as many cell phones as there are toilets. And so you have to leverage that idea and move forward. The other is, you are powerful. And so you actually are full of power, given what we're talking about, but the reality is you have the power. Poop is power, and as a person who has that kind of power, you have to exercise it. You cannot be passive and sit around. And when I was a kid, I saw this awesome exhibit at the Science Museum where they showed how poop is power, and it talked about cows, but the same thing applies to humans. You have to change your perspective, and that is truly the greatest power we're talking about here today. You have to be able to take this horrible thing that no one will talk about and show them that it can help them have power and energy and grow food. And the biggest transformation is that this is not just about charity or government, but citizens can fix this. And we see a future in which there will be millions of entrepreneurs. And so instead of throwing that business down the drain, let's transform it. This is going to be the golden era of shit. It's going to be amazing. So jump in now. So movements matter. Why? Because if you try to do something alone, it doesn't work. When you're out there in the lone wolf and you just drop something off, you have no power to sustain it, you don't have all the ideas, and so what do you get in our world is it looks like a toilet graveyard. Loads of projects, lots of failure. And eventually, they just stack up, and so people quit trying. What you have to do is collaborate. You have to be hyper-collaborative. You have to build alliances. It doesn't matter who they are. You can join forces because that gives you the willpower to stay in the game. It gives you the know-how to figure out how to solve the problem, and then it gives you enough people that you can sustain it over long periods of time. The sixth lesson is to tinker. To tinker is what inventors love to do, and I love innovation. So tinkering is trying to do something a little bit at a time, but always staying at it. And so what we like to do is, as a closing lesson here, is to talk about how we're going to re-potty train you. It doesn't just stop when you're a little kid. It actually is taking place now. So what do we mean by that? When you go to the bathroom next, let's think about going to the bathroom in general. It's a beautiful thing. It's like your moment of silence. And you know no one is going to bother you. They don't want to know what's going on in there. They don't know if you're tweeting about this. They don't know if you're watching this TED Talk on Ustream right now. It is your quiet zone. Use it. Feed your mind. Think about things. You have no interruptions. And you might just come up with the idea that helps solve the next big challenge. Be the thinking person every single time you use that bathroom. But the other lesson that Mr. Toilet teaches us is that you have to be humble. Now, here in Japan, it's pretty amazing. You have these washlets, so very rarely does it actually matter if you run out of paper because you have all these cool tools in your toilet. But for the rest of the world, when you don't have toilet paper, that is a bad day. That means what? You have to ask for help. And when you're taking on supersized problems, it's very much the same. At some point, you're going to run out of the resources, but you're still going to have the will, and you're still going to have to do something about it, so you're going to have to ask for help. Be brave enough to do that. The other thing is, when you're in the bathroom, sometimes you go in and you can't do your business. Well, it's the same in the do-good world. I call it do-good constipation. People say, oh, I'd like to change the world, but blah, blah, blah. They have a million excuses. And then eventually they say these three words: would have done it, should have done it, could have done it. We say, banish those words from your brain. Get rid of those. Take action. Now, we're done with Mr. Toilet for the moment, but I have to give a shout out to moms everywhere, and my mom included. My grandparents had a restaurant, and there was something very simple that they taught, that all human beings are linked together, and that you must wash your hands every time you go to the bathroom, because it's the best sign of respect to others, and it keeps everyone healthy and safe. You break that commitment, and you become the point of hurting your neighbors. So, Mama says, wash your hands. The other thing is that moms and dads, but certainly moms are really powerful at this, they say, you have a chance to make the world better. You directly, every single person has a chance to make the world a better place. So stand up. Don't sit down. You are super powerful. Use those powers to make the world a better place, no matter what you're passionate about. And last but not least, what did we learn from Mr. Toilet and the two girls and all the awesome moms in the world? That is something that I want you to do every single time that you go to the bathroom now. Every single time. And I know that you do it. Everyone does. And you do it every day. What I want you to do is to know that you can make the world a better place. But in order to do that, you have to give a shit. Thank you.